So I've been kind of avoiding this one because I knew eventually doing this was going to get personal. So I was given a revelation the other day. It's a revelation I've had before, but I forgot. So, like, it's kind of the idea of fasting and being, the idea of fasting is being hungry for the Lord. So, throughout the day or days that you're fasting, every time you get hungry for food, which kind of represents the world, you, in those moments, can, instead of going and getting the food and filling yourself up with the things of the world, you instead rely on God. So when you get hungry physically, mentally, you think about God, and the I don't know if you've ever fasted before, but I did a 4-day fast, and it really is remarkable how when you get hungry and think about God, in those moments, it really makes you hungry for God, and it's really a good tool and practice to get in that mindset. So then when you are done fasting, you can rely on God. So the revelation that I've had is similar to fasting, but with regards to shielding my eyes and guarding my mind. Or is it guarding your eyes and shielding your mind or imagination? So, like, whenever I have an impure thought, it's the same as kind of like when you're fasting and you get hungry. Instead of indulging in that impure thought and letting yourself dwell on it and thinking about it, I instead will throw that thought aside, cast it aside, and pray in that moment and think about God and abide in God. And then same thing with the eyes. If I'm driving and I see something that I shouldn't be stopping or gawking at, I'll bounce my eyes off of it, and in those moments, instead of just doing it my own willpower, I'll bounce my eyes off it and praise God and think about God and refocus on the good things of the Lord and the kingdom of high. And so I found some Bible verses that kind of describe that. The first one is Matthew 6:22 through 23. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Basically, is what that's saying is light is righteousness and darkness is lack of righteousness, which is not in and of itself bad. It's just lack of light. But it's in those places where you're not shining light on a thing that you're opening up a door for the devil to fill that space. So, yeah, if you're looking at something that's void of light, you should instead not look and focus on that. You should instead look at things of light. So the next one is Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. See, I wasn't able to find any verses that talked about guarding your mind. So I'm thinking that's not actually... I couldn't find a verse on guarding your mind and imagination. But I found verses on guarding your heart. So yeah. So then the next one is Romans 12:2. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. If you stop and focus on the things of the world, that implies that you're not stopping and focusing on the things of the kingdom. And throughout the Bible, there's plenty of verses that talk about you cannot be ruled by both the world and God at the same time. You're either a lover of the world or you're a lover of God. You cannot have it both ways. And in wanting to get closer to God and farther away from the things of the world, I can't stop and dwell on impure thoughts and looking at impure things. So the last one is Colossians 3:2. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. So it just all becomes pretty self-explanatory. If you're focusing on the things of the world, you're not focusing on things of the kingdom. So one last tidbit that I really like that's helped me is, I heard this once and I love it, and I've answered people this way ever since. People will often ask, and myself included, I would ask, is such and such a sin? Is so and so a sin? Finding out whether or not you can do this thing or not. You know, like, just the way I am, I would get as close to the line as possible. I would try to find out where this line is and kind of play this game where I'd see how close to the line I can get without sinning, right? Well, eventually the devil gets you there. You're opening up doors. But so the tidbit is this. So instead of asking yourself if something is a sin or not, ask yourself if that particular thing that you're wanting to do glorifies God. The answer becomes a lot more clear. The things that glorify God aren't near the edge of the line where righteousness ends and sin begins. The things of God are holy and good and righteous. It becomes very clear really quick. The line isn't so gray when you ask yourself, does this particular thing glorify God or not? But the line can get kind of gray when you ask the question, is this particular thing a sin or not? Yeah, it's like, oh, maybe, I don't know. It depends on the person. It depends on this or it depends on that. What's that person been called to do? Has that person been called to stay away? Yeah, so that's it.